Welcome to the Atheist Witch Podcast, a bi-weekly podcast for witches or any curious minds to learn more about a non-theistic approach to witchcraft. Hello, my wonderful, skeptical, and curious listeners, and welcome back to the Atheist Witch Podcast. I'm your host, and today we are continuing our deep dive into the great pantheons of human history. We've explored the wild, emotional landscape of the Celts, the philosophical heights of the Hellenists, and the grim pragmatism of the Norse. And today we are turning our eyes toward the Nile. We are talking about the Egyptian pantheon. Now, as always, let's set our atheist lens firmly in place before we step onto the sands. When I talk about Thoth or Isis today, I am not talking about literal beings with ibis heads or wings who are sitting on a cloud judging your choices. I don't believe that deities exist as external entities. Instead, we're looking at these figures as Jungian archetypes. These are massive, durable patterns of human behavior and personality that have been codified into stories. The Egyptians built a civilization that lasted for over 3,000 years, longer than modern Christianity has existed, and they did it by creating symbols that perfectly mirror the human psyche. They mapped the chaos and order of the human mind onto the chaos and order of their environment. So today, we're not worshiping, we're analyzing. We are looking for the psychological utility in these very ancient symbols. To understand these archetypes, we have to look at the observable reality of the people who created them. Ancient Egypt, or Kemet, was defined by one singular geographic feature, the Nile River. Unlike the Norse, who lived in a world of unpredictable freezing winters and scarce resources, the Egyptians lived in a world of rhythmic predictability. The river flooded every year, depositing rich black silt that allowed for agriculture. Beyond that narrow strip of life was the Deshret, the red land, the harsh and unforgiving desert. This dichotomy created a worldview obsessed with duality and balance. The entire religion was essentially an elaborate system designed to maintain Ma'at, order, truth, and balance, and hold back Isfet, or chaos. Their society was incredibly structured, bureaucratic, and appreciative of the written word. They were master architects, astronomers, doctors. Because of this, their gods aren't warriors like the Norse Aesir, they are administrators, scribes, magicians, and judges. They represent the functions of a highly organized mind. It's also important to note that this wasn't a static religion, it evolved. We even see a fascinating period under the pharaoh Akhenaten where he established a new cult dedicated to the sun, the Aten, effectively creating a monotheistic faith. This highlights that even ancient beliefs were subject to political and cultural evolution, just like our modern understanding of the world. Eventually, these beliefs merged with Greek philosophy under the Ptolemies, giving us Hermeticism, and later influenced alchemy and Western occultism. But at their core, these figures remain representations of the fundamental forces of nature and the human experience: birth, death, the sun, the river, and the mind. So let's pick 4 of them to serve as our psychological pillars for the modern atheist witch. First, we have Thoth. Often depicted with the head of an ibis or a baboon, he is the god of writing, wisdom, science, and magic. Thoth was the scribe of the gods. He invented hieroglyphs. He measured the earth, counted the stars, and maintained the library of the gods. He is the ultimate objective observer. For us, Thoth is the archetype of the intellectual or the scientist. He represents the neocortex, the analytical, logical, data processing part of your brain. He is the part of you that craves evidence, organization, and clarity. You can use the archetype of Thoth when you're engaging in research or deep study. For me, when I'm organizing my grimoire or trying to understand the physics behind a natural phenomenon, I am tapping into my Thoth energy. He is a subconscious trigger for focus, objectivity, and critical thinking. Next is Isis. She is perhaps the most famous, often seen as the goddess of magic, motherhood, and healing. The most pivotal myth of Isis involves her husband, Osiris, being murdered and dismembered. Isis didn't just grieve, she traveled the world to find his scattered pieces, reassembled them, and used her magic to breathe life back into him just long enough to conceive a child. Isis is the one who puts broken things back together. Isis represents the alchemist, or the healer. This is not about literal resurrection, but more psychological resilience. She represents the capacity of the human mind to experience trauma or fragmentation and painstakingly piece the self back together. She is the drive to survive. So use the Isis archetype when you're doing shadow work related to grief or perhaps burnout. She is a symbol of active healing, not just waiting to feel better, but taking action to reassemble your own life. Then we have Sekhmet, the lioness. She is the goddess of war, pestilence, and healing. I personally vibe a lot with Sekhmet as a personal archetype. Sekhmet was created from the fire of the sun god's eye to punish humanity for their rebellion. She nearly wiped out the human race in bloodlust until the gods tricked her by dyeing beer red to look like blood. She drank it, got drunk, and fell asleep, and woke up as the gentler goddess Hathor. Sekhmet is the archetype of righteous anger and the primal id. She represents the destructive force that is sometimes necessary to protect boundaries. She is the fight response in your fight or flight mechanism. For the atheist witch, Sekhmet is vital for boundary work. When you need to say no, and perhaps you're defending your mental health or channeling rage into a workout or a cause, you are embodying Sekhmet. She reminds us that anger is a valid protective tool when controlled, but destructive when left unchecked. Finally, we have Ma'at. She's depicted as a woman with an ostrich feather on her head, but she's less of a person and more of a concept of cosmic order. Ma'at is the truth against which the hearts of the dead are weighed. If your heart is lighter than her feather, you pass on. If it's heavy with guilt and wrongdoing, then you are devoured. Ma'at represents the internal compass, or integrity. She is the psychological need for homeostasis and ethical consistency. We all have a sense of when we're acting out of alignment with our own values. That heavy heart feeling is a real somatic response to guilt or cognitive dissonance. For me personally, Ma'at aligns with my own tenet of harmony, balance between humanity and nature, within and without oneself. Ma'at is the ultimate symbol of that equilibrium. She is the ultimate tool for decision making. When you're feeling scattered or anxious, visualizing the feather of Ma'at could be a prompt to check your own integrity. Are your actions aligning with your values? So how do we synthesize this? The Egyptians believed in Heka or Hika, magic. But Heka wasn't just waving a wand. It translates roughly to authoritative speech or activating the Ka, or the soul. It was the belief that speaking words with intent could shape reality. From a neuroscience perspective, they were right, but not because of supernatural forces, of course. They were tapping into priming. When you place a statue of Thoth on your desk or wear a pendant of Ma'at's feather, you are priming your brain. You are giving your reticular activating system a specific instruction and telling your brain, filter out for wisdom or filter for balance. By interacting with these symbols, you aren't summoning a god. You are changing your cognitive framing. You're engaging in a self-directed placebo effect where the symbol triggers a specific neurochemical state: focus, calm, or confidence. The magic of Heka is actually the power of language and symbols to reprogram your subconscious mind. And it is, as I always say, just spicy psychology. To wrap up our journey through Egypt, it's time for a practical challenge. We will perform the Heka of the true name. This is a ritual designed to help you activate the Thoth archetype to master a complex task or project that you've been avoiding. First, identify your isfet, or chaos. Choose one project or mental block that feels like pure chaos right now. Next, assign the name. On a piece of paper, write down the name of the chaos. Then underneath it, rewrite it using a secret script. You could use the Theban alphabet or perhaps your own alphabet. This active translation is an exercise in reframing. You're taking the scary thing and turning it into data that you can manipulate. Stand at your desk or workspace and channel the Thoth archetype. Steady, objective, and analytical. Speak your intention out loud with absolute authority. I have the wisdom to organize this chaos. I am the architect of this order. And immediately spend exactly 5 minutes organizing or begin the task. By vocalizing your intent, you're engaging your vagus nerve and signaling your brain that strategy mode has come online. You are not asking Thoth for help, you are using the symbol of the scribe to trigger your own executive function. That's all for today's deep dive into the Egyptian Pantheon. I hope this helps you see these ancient figures not as myths to be believed in, but as mirrors for your own marvelous mind. Join me in 2 weeks for our next episode. Join me next week for our next Pantheon series episode, where we will be exploring the Sumerian Pantheon and the origins of civilization. As always, you can find me on Instagram at @anatheistwitch or email your questions and comments to anatheistwitch@gmail.com. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep making your own magic.